In every system, there's a signal, a pulse, a spark that cuts through the noise. Some call it innovation. Some call it disruption. We call it the protocol. Welcome to the grid, where ideas illuminate, where technology bends and reshapes the world around us, and where the future isn't predicted. It's engineered. Here, we decode the frameworks behind extended reality, AI, and spatial computing. We trace the lines between creativity and code, between human intention and digital possibility. This is where builders, thinkers, and explorers step out of the shadows and into the neon to share the systems, the stories, and the sparks that shape tomorrow's tech. So plug in, power up, and follow the signal. This is Neon Protocol.
Tonight on Neon Protocol, we're diving straight into the systems shaping what comes next. I'm Gene Feldman, and tonight we're also joined by Ron Thompson, Lucky Gobindram, Damon Shackleford, and Mike Vann. Together, we're the Neon Protocol team that's going to be exploring XR, AI, spatial computing, and the various infrastructures that make them real. We're here to break down what's working, what's changing, and what's about to break open. So in this episode, the Neon Protocol team, we're going to sit down with Bobby Carlton of FS Studios to dig into the psychology behind immersive learning. Together, we're going to explore why XR experiences can accelerate skill development and how organizations are using them to solve real-world challenges, and what it actually takes for design training that changes behavior. The one thing I like is Bobby brings a very grounded, practical view of where immersive tech is headed, and really why it represents a fundamental shift in human learning, not just another trend. And I say this from practical experience because as much as people credit me either being an OG or being, having these very developed XR projects in the past, Bobby has been one of my mentors and my inspiration. So I'm excited, Bobby, for you to join the show today. Really, I credit you for some of my first sparks. And so I could introduce you and I would just gush all over how cool I think you are, but I'll let you introduce yourself and what you'd like to share. And welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me, everyone. I appreciate being on the show, especially here on May 4th, Star Wars Day. So that's, when I got the message, I was like, I can't resist. How do I say no to Gene Feldman and crew on Star Wars Day? So
exactly.
It's great to be on the show.
All part of the nefarious plan.
Absolutely.
Our fully operational podcast.
But you're your best Palpatine, if anything. So, So I remember meeting you, Gene, back in the day. I was working for the Elliott Mazie. I was running, I was director of a project called VR Learn. Before then, just to get background, I had worked for Apple for like 10 years. I was doing education technology, specifically for Apple product and Apple software. And then when I left there, I went over to Elliott Mazie at the Mazie Center, did work with him. We did a lot of VR training at the time. We had a DK1. We were one of the first to get a DK1. It's sitting right down here. And we got the version that was signed by the whole team. And so we started digging into it, and we were working with corporate, learners and leaders, and then, doing work with the military on sort of, at the time, VR adoption. What were the steps, what was involved. Did that for a bunch of years, partnered with Elliott beyond that first year. I was doing work with like Motorola and Siemens and just getting a lot of different work in that area. And then since then, I will say, that as XR technology changed and we saw the sort of landscape of VR shift slightly, obviously AR technology came as well. I began to pivot myself, still very much involved with XR training and virtual reality and what's going on with the hardware and how people are approaching learning. But I had shifted more to the sort of the digital twinning, synthetic data, robotics side, which still leverages headsets and still leverages AR technology. And so that's where I am now at FS Studio. So we do a lot of that type of digital solutions work, which again includes not just like the physical AI work and synthetic data and all that, but it does include virtual reality and augmented reality solutions when our clients ask for that, and we still see a good amount of it. Obviously, as you guys know, the landscape of VR training has changed.
Mm, yes.
I remember we went to that what I used to call like the wild west of VR. If you remember, where it was like when HTC was holding these like poshy New York City events, fighting, and at that time I was writing for VR Scouts.
I remember.
Oh, yeah, so I was getting invited to these, like, poshy, like, pop-up events where they were like, "Try out the HTC Cosmos. Try out the new Pico headset," and you'd go to these activations and, I remember going to the Microsoft, HoloLens 2 launch in this place I could never even imagine living in Manhattan. It was in Lower Manhattan, this, like, beautiful four-story apartment with a pool in it, and they were doing, like,
Wow.
HoloLens activations.
I still remember when we were at OC6 and they just announced Horizon and Meta. Well, it was Facebook at the time, but at the time they had a physical model of the entire Horizon world laid out in as a physical model.
Yeah.
So you could actually walk around it in real life and see it. Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things that now, and this kind of is actually where I kind of want to lead the conversation because it almost seems like what was the coolest toy in the room that really sparked a lot of attention, and by you with being writing with VR Scout, which I think you've had the opportunity to see so much,
I was
you
very
know.
lucky. That was I say the VR Scout gig was anything opened up a lot of doors for me.
Yep, access. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the question, I mean, with the trends of it, I mean, you getting into, still robotics, still doing VR, are you noticing a trend? I know sometimes we've talked about where HQ is kind of seeing VR now as this add-on luxury item, whereas the factories now who've always been kind of our Achilles heel because we never had a really good solution or had the safety glasses. Now they're actually showing interest by dipping their toes in the AI world and
Mhm.
seeing where they
Yes.
can take it. So, kind of curious what your thoughts are, where you've seen it based on your experience.
Well, I think, you mentioned AI. Obviously, AI is a massive tool right now, and everybody is trying to leverage, how is AI, whether it's Copilot, whether it's Omniverse or something, physical AI. And physical AI, is that sort of that bridges that gap between the digital solution and the actual hardware, or the robot or the conveyor system. And that's where I think, where I think virtual reality was trying to gap. They were there. I think there are companies who are like, this technology is going to change the learning process by gapping the digital content, the second life type of experiences. And I think it struggled to find a spot, but physical AI seems to have found that spot. But the interesting thing is, because of that, it's now kind of pulling in virtual reality, right? It's
Mm,
now pulling in augmented reality, and you're starting to see, yes, Meta seems to have abandoned, not totally abandoned, but they've sort of shifted their priorities on VR, but they haven't completely given up on VR. And matter of fact, they're still very much pursuing wearables because they're looking at like that type of technology. And I think the term VR has changed for them. It doesn't have to be sort of what we thought VR was, like this immersive virtual content, but VR could be an audio experience. It could be, through wearables. It could be sort of like this experience where you're getting some sort of information or data through a device, and so that you know that the virtual world is sort of sort of been exploded out of the what we see through a headset, if that makes sense. And so physical AI or AI tools is starting to kind of pull all those aspects into it. And so that's where I think it's we're in an interesting space, you know, in my opinion, with that.
Hmm.
No, I agree because I think, especially as now you're hearing that Google's teaming up with, oh, I just blinked out, uh, the sunglass company.
Oh,
Oh,
um,
Gucci.
I know who you're
Gucci.
talking about. I know
Just
the
ta
company.
Yeah, I was just talking about with somebody the other day. Ron was bringing it up.
Anthony, what?
Uh,
Gucci?
Gucci. Now that you're seeing
uh,
other brands now starting to actually get into it, that it didn't take long for Oakley to follow suit.
Yeah.
So you're seeing some what I like to say is you're seeing these everyday use cases
Hmm.
that VR, even though it was great and we were all great champions for it, it lacked it. It was either it just didn't have to me, it didn't have the flexibility just to put it on and go. There's still too much preparation for it.
That is so on the spot, like that again. And I have the Meta glasses, and I love them. And they do the most. I don't. They're not the displays because I don't need the displays. I need to be able to get a text message, send a text message, answer phone calls, listen to music, ask the AI, though the AI is not the greatest, but the AI does help. The live translations actually works pretty well. The conversation focus is a feature I never thought I would ever use. Not sure if you're aware, but so the glasses for conversation focus, if I'm in a crowded room, I can activate it and it uses the mic to then amplify the person in front of me. So if I'm at a restaurant, I can actually hear them.
yeah, it's pretty good.
It's a little tinny, but but it's not. But again, it's not perfect. But I think that where VR was difficult because it wasn't that throw it on and go, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and it wasn't like it wasn't easy. Unfortunately, that was one of its biggest roadblocks. It was like it just wasn't easy. It wasn't, if you talk to trainers, if you talk to someone on the ground of a manufacturing company who saw the potential of virtual reality, they're like, VR is going to change training, and this is how we're going to do it. And they are selling it to the stakeholders, right? Gene, exactly. But then you have the people at the top the people who are doing the math and be like, wait a minute. So how long does it take for someone to put on the VR headset and then learn the process? Okay, few minutes. Now they're like, well, okay, few minutes times 500 employees. They're like, well, that's starting to add up. And then now they're wondering, plus now you have to buy the headsets. And then there's the individuals who like maybe they're not as savvy as some and they take 10 minutes to learn the headset. Um, and I think that's where VR struggled, in my opinion. And but the potential, like what you could do with it and what you could do in it was amazing. You were you were able to change the learner's perspective. You were able to evoke an emotion. Obviously, you're able to evoke challenges where if they failed, they felt like oh my god, I could get electrocuted, like because they truly felt that the psychology, right? This is what we're talking about, the psychology of VR training, like training itself is already like a mind fuck. Can I say that? Can I swear on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the AI will
training is
beep it. It'll be a mind.
No, no, absolutely. Because like I said, yeah, this is us talking.
yes.
This is what people to me, I think these are the conversations that people are getting new into the field want to
Yeah.
hear. They
Okay.
don't wanna hear we're creating
Corporate.
synergies.
Yeah.
No, we're
Well,
'cause
well,
'cause I agree with you. I mean, we have it's like spaghetti. We have thrown VR at almost everything that we could possibly think of to try
mhm,
to find that in over the years.
yeah.
So let me ask a question for Bobby. So Bobby, Mike Vann, Agents of Play. We work with large enterprise companies to develop immersive and now a lot of AI, and we're starting to get into physical AI as well. We have a lot of enterprise partners asking for education about how to think about physical AI across their workspace. So, with all that said, is physical AI and robotics the third or fourth coming of VR headsets through training, through synthetic data and training of
Third or fourth
humanoid robots?
I love how you put
Oh,
that.
I wish Bob were here to hear that.
I mean, we're going through cycles, right? It could be the thing.
Well, I think I was definitely in that bucket for a while, right? Where like, this is a great story. So I mean, I talked about Elliot earlier, Elliot Mazie, Gene, and then you guys maybe know Elliot Mazie, maybe you don't, but Elliot was considered this. And he's a brilliant man, a learning guru, like this guy.
The bit in the learning world, the best way to sum him up, he is the one who created the phrase e-learning.
Yes, he is. He is the guy. And so Elliot and I worked for Elliot, and Elliot. I remember when I first joined his team, and Elliot and I before then we used to nerd out. We used to sit at the coffee shop and we'd nerd about like technology, and we talked a lot about like Second Life. We talked about the potential of how learning and education could change, and so we really jammed and got along really well. And so when I became manager director of this project called VR Learn for him, he we started having these conversations, and I was really sort of caught up in the excitement of virtual reality, like that, like this is going to change everything. This is going, and he stopped me. And this is honestly something I walked away with, and I held on to. And he just looked at me and said, "Stop advocating for this technology." He's like, "The moment you advocate for VR, you might as well be working at a store selling underwear to someone who just says, 'I want underwear.'" And he was right in that
Yeah.
that like I needed to start poking holes. He's like, I'm bringing you here because I need you to, like, you ask these questions in in our coffee shop conversations. It's like, I need you to ask those questions. I don't need you to advocate for it. I need you to to poke holes in it. I need you to say, where does it work? Where does it work? And so, Mike, to go back to you, like, do I see virtual reality as through physical AI being the sort of like fifth coming, sixth coming of VR? Through that lens of Elliot? What's that?
Yeah. It's AI math.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Through that lens of Elliot, I would say that there, and I know it's going to sound negative, but there is nothing that's going to push VR technology into the place where I think that sort of the VR advocates want it to be. It just won't happen. But I do think that there is a place for VR technology. And I do think, and I'm speaking of VR as in the sense of, headset VR.
Yep.
Fully
Yeah.
immersive.
Yeah, fully immersive. That yes, there is a place for that. And I do think look at teleop robotics training, right? I mean, that's where we're training robots simply by putting on a VR headset, and then we're capturing our hand motion, we're doing tasks, and that data is using training robots.
So, Bobby, question for you. So basically, I mean, at the same time, we're like training humans and machines for the same future, sort of, kind of, right? Like XR helps people rehearse high stakes moments. Physical AI helps machines understand and act in the real world. The overlap is simulation, right, at the core. Like digital twins, synthetic data, spatial computing, and immersive environments where humans and AI can both learn, and both realities get not expensive, but like, it's sort of the where they connect, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's where, again, going back to the physical AI, that's where I think it's interesting that physical AI, again, was sort of like this one thought process, but now we're starting to see how it's like stretching out into other ways, right? The human element, the robotics element, the training element, the data collection element.
No, and this actually gets to kind of a good point because for me, I've always argued that AI can never understand the human condition. But
Mm.
for us, with our human condition, we need AI to be more than just words on a screen. You know, when I see AI that's words on a screen, honestly, my first thought goes to Mother and Alien. You know, it's or war games. You know, I don't want to play a game.
Sure.
I want to talk to somebody. And even when war games, all of us that watched the movie, the minute he put the phone on, and all of a sudden we could hear the computer, it was like revolutionary for us at the time.
You I think that goes back to the subject matter of what we're talking about, right? The psychology of VR training or digital immersive training, right? That I think I was starting to say it earlier, like when someone says I have to do training, it's instantly a negative thing. Like, oh Jesus, how long is it going to be? Am I do I have to do this every year?
How many videos?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. How many videos do I have to take a test at the end? Like, it is it is so tied in with, like, "This sucks." And I have
Right.
to
Oh,
Oh,
figure
it
Right.
sucks
absolutely,
terribly.
but
And HR and all the things we hate about those
yeah,
sorts of organizations looking over your shoulder.
I think it's really interesting. Yeah,
absolutely, and
it
that's
rules
and
the hatred for HR.
yeah, and I think that's where I come at from the other perspective than everybody else. I'm the one you guys all hate because I'm the one that's writing the training. you know, yeah, and I may cheat because I have access to the database of answers, but I
But
think
there's
we're
training and then there's training, that bad
Oh,
taste
it's a
kind of training. That's that corporate-y, mandatory gobbledygook that we all have to do on an annual
Mhm.
basis because some lawyer somewhere won a case.
But
so
but
We
I
hate
what
it. We
should
hate it.
learning and development leaders be paying attention to right now then? Is the future of training still courseware, or is it moving toward dynamic simulation and real-time practice environments, right? This is a verdict that I think is debatable in so many
yeah.
ways. I spent my day at an AI conference and there was a huge argument.
I think that is one of those things where it depends on who you talk to, who you ask, right? It's like saying going to a Knicks fan, being like, "Who's the greatest basketball team in the round?" And they're gonna be like, "It's the fucking Knicks. Who do you fucking think is the best?" And it's like,
Well,
but
well said. Well said.
it depends on who you talk to.
There is no debate there, gentlemen.
There is.
Because you are an advocate for the Knicks, right? And
Yeah.
you that and I think that applies to like we could tie it to Star Wars, right? New Hope, Empire Strikes Back. That's my Star Wars. That's my generation of Star Wars. You ask my stepson, his generation of Star Wars is Clone Wars, and he's going to tell
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
Clone Wars is the best Star Wars, and you can't tell me differently. You
Same
ask
thing in
my
my
daughter,
household. Yep.
and she's going to say, "Oh yeah, I love the Force Awakens." Like it is each individual's perspective of like what ownership. And I think with training, Lucky, to answer your question, in my opinion, I'm just one cog in the wheel of many cogs.
Sure.
But I think it all depends on who you ask for. Where are they? Are they the stakeholder? Are they on the floor? And does virtual reality training or does traditional training matter? You ask my wife, who's in HR. She works HR for a huge AEC company. They don't. They're like, no one does immersive training. They're like, we don't do that.
Ooh.
Like we are. You do training like this, and that's how they do it.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
It's very much a pushback to instructor-led lecture training
and you
because
should go, Gene.
it's the
You
most
should go.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the most efficient way to deliver it. But this is where I kind of think about it, and since it's Star Wars Day and we've kind of danced around Star Wars, I'm really bringing it forefront because I've argued that physical AI and this kind of where I was going with the our human condition is the C3PO R2D2 are the greatest examples of working AI within humanity or alien humanity, however, whatever the creatures are. But you watch the idea that George Lucas presented. It's very much like how Gene Roddenberry presented the tricorder. He presented these droids they were trained for function, but they were also trained to have some adaptability to apply that function to other things. but they didn't take over, and we did. And the last thing we did is we didn't follow them blindly. I mean, having C-3PO the way he was, okay, I'm not going to follow this robot blindly, but
Right.
they're providing assistance to us. And I think that's where, as we get into this physical AI, that I think of, what if that we could have a combination of having an AI trainer that can deliver a consistent message each and every time, that can be that captivating way, or that you can adjust it, say 60% of this class is learning dominant style behavior, or not learning,
Mhm.
listening. I'm hoping they're all learning. They're
Right.
listening dominant. So the AI can adjust on the fly its delivery method to adjust the predominant learners in that class. I don't know.
Yeah, agentic avatars, right? And we're talking about like there's like we've seen metahuman work. Unreal Engine has an SDK that and there's some amazing metahuman work out there. But I think I will say some of the conversations that we're having with clients is like they who are looking for that sort of that training mechanism with agentic AI, with photorealistic avatars. Like they want, they're like, hey, we're not abandoning sort of virtual reality solutions and technology and training. We just want it to be more human like, which is a really odd thing to ask, in my opinion. Like you're like, you're telling me you want a digital solution that you want it to be more human like, and then so why don't you just have a human do it? And this is a great example. I was talking to a friend of mine who works at Home Depot. He's a Home Depot employee. He's not, there's nothing to do with technology. He's a buddy of mine. We get beers together. We nerd out on horror movies and sci-fi. And he asked me one day, he's like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, well, this is back when I was deep in the VR days working at Macy's Center. He's like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, like we explore, these digital solutions for training, how to train, change training through full 360 immersive worlds. You put on a headset, and then, and he's like, "Well, what do you do in this?" And I was like, "Well, you do the tasks, like like you're doing all the tasks and you learn how to do it." And he goes, "Well, why don't you just do that in the real world? Like, why do you have to do it?" And
But like, isn't that just like
Mhm.
it's XR and like spatial is just a content format, right? It creates a
Mhm.
rehearsal layer, right?
Yeah,
And like, I get it. We want them to be more human. Sometimes I think like because this is all I live and breathe this at this point, and like it's not even about like them looking more real. It's like okay, them stuttering, them having inflection, them
yeah,
pushing
yeah,
back in the real world, right? It's like these are the types of
Making
things that make them
mistakes.
more
making
human,
Being
mistakes.
making
human.
mistakes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Being human, and when you get that right all of a sudden the human mind forgets that guy looks like a cartoon and he's getting real world play and practice. You're getting rid of the practice tax on the business,
I
right?
think that's a really good point. And I think that's where I think some VR training went wrong. It was like too on the spot, like rehearse perfect. Like it needs to be able to have this component where in the middle of the training, I have a question. Well, like I have a question. Like I remember Elliot, we was always like he'd be talking, and no one raise their hands. And I think with VR training that I've seen, it was never a. It was like they tell you what to do, you do it, and then you get the A B choose A B and C, and then it tells you did wrong, you did right. Uh, But that's where I think experiences could improve. And I think with AI tools, agentic AI, physical AI, large language models, you know, that again will start to kind of bring that together. It's like Captain Kirk, right? And Captain Kirk can't do everything on the Enterprise, but he brought in like experts to surround him. And I think with AI, physical AI, it's like okay, now this is like the center, and now it's bringing the other elements into the training, where now I think we could be in that place where the training, as you say, Lucky, like it makes mistakes. It'll stop. It'll answer a
Yeah.
question.
I mean, we've all seen AI
To most
avatars
part.
that feel dead on arrival, right? Like,
Yeah.
like the branching dialogues that feel like choose your own adventure book or chatbot
Oh
interactions
my
that feel
God, the worst.
robotic, right? And it's the worst, right? Like it's got to be authentic, right? And it's gotta be driven by a principle that believability beats intelligence, right? It's not even about that. A brilliant answer delivered in a robotic cadence breaks immersion instantly, but a
Yeah.
slightly imperfect response, one with like realistic hesitation emotional memory, genuine body language, that changes behavior, right?
That changes behavior. Well, oh yeah, yeah. And I think again, I think that's where VR sort of maybe missed the mark. But at the same time, VR came at a very odd early time. I used to, I used to kind of say how before virtual reality, like, technology was always the answer to a problem, right? I love hot coffee. I love to drink hot coffee at home, but now I want to go in my car. Well, I'm not going to put a mug in my car. So someone was like, hey, I will create a portable mug, right? And they have this mug, and the answer was technology. Technology said, no, you can drink, but now, oh, wait, now when I drive, the coffee splash, well, I got to make a lid. And if you remember the old Dunkin' Donuts lid, right? The flat lid, you had to peel the top off. Those sucked and people complained about it.
Terrible.
Oh yeah,
The
and I
answer
think.
was
Oh, go ahead.
the answer, turn to technology now, let's make the lid so it's like a volcano. And it was so we technology was always the answer to a problem. But then for me, VR was a solution that they were like, well, we don't know what the problem is, but we got this solution. So let's just try to make it work everywhere. And unfortunately, I think that's where in that early stage of virtual reality training and education sort of, I don't want to say failed, but just sort of like couldn't find traction in my
Well,
opinion.
well,
But I do think if VR came out today, or like if it came out
The
today, but
world.
I think it'd be a much different story.
AI first, leaner, it changes
Yeah.
everything, right?
absolutely, and I think the three disruptions that XR experienced throughout the past couple years didn't help. From going,
Yeah.
from first we entered the pandemic, which was a sweet spot for VR because of remote work and what we could do. But then NFTs reared their ugly head,
Oh my God.
and everybody jumped on the profit bandwagon,
Yeah.
and I'm still going, I could just screenshot your NFT and have it for free,
Right.
you know?
I
And
own that.
yeah. And then all of a sudden you get into, okay, we get out of the pandemic, we have to return back to the office, quest for business closes. So now the support system for what we had, because for me, pushing it in office, the last thing that anybody's going to want it when you want interaction is 30 people in cubes all on VR headsets.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a hard sell, the thinking about like, again, as an employer, like, are people wearing headsets? Like, what's going on? Like, wait, what are they looking at? What are they doing? And then once we got past that hump, and then there was like that big push of like getting headsets on the floor of the manufacturing. There's no way the liability that
Dangerous.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, Gene's training on the floor of the VR headset, but don't worry because the pass-through cameras are so good. Like, what? Can't get hurt.
But that's okay. If my battery dies, I can still feel.
Right?
Oh gosh.
So I just
I got
think
a backup battery, Gene. Come
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
hot
I'm
swap.
4-pound
Cloud
battery. I'm
swap.
plugging up to the back of my head.
The back of my head.
It's all you want to do when you're hanging off a rafter is hot swap a
Yeah,
VR
hold on a
battery.
second. I'm hot swapping a battery. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
it's just
So
a-
so let me bring it all the way back around to Star Wars. So the space industry and everything we're hearing about space and going to the moon and creating fab factories. We're gonna build
Data
humanoid.
centers
We're
in
gonna build
orbit.
robotics. Yeah, we're gonna build stuff on the moon, and then we're gonna go to Mars, and we're gonna fab there. Where does XR? Where does all of this fit into actually making all of that stuff happen? I mean, it feels like there's a role there. It's just that all of these tools that everyone here has been pushing on for 20 years, like that's where it's gonna find a home.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and that's where like the teleop work is going to be super, super important. That's where the layer of the VR headset or the AR glasses, Snapchat, their glasses and displays. Teleop is going to be um, that tool again, either used for the VR training, for the data collection, or for of sort of jumping in on the fly to help unstick a robot in a situation.
Just
So
take over the body
take
through
over
the
the
headset.
body, move it, yeah, and get it unstuck, and I mean, Waymo, for example, I mean, those autonomous vehicles, they, they have the ability, if it gets in a situation where the
Human
passenger
jumps in.
jump in, hit a button, and then someone can then, remote into the vehicle. And I've seen those, but those the little food delivery robots, that's and if need be, that they could, I mean, use a VR headset, right, to sort of help guide the robot out of a situation. So there's definitely a layer there. I don't, I do think virtual reality, I think as the hardware improves, I mean, I think that as the approach, like streaming content to a headset versus having the content live on the headset, I think is gonna help
Yeah,
push VR into this next sort of evolution of where it should be.
NVIDIA is doing some great work with that, right? Bringing things from the cloud to the device. It's
Yeah, yeah.
making leaps and bounds.
I mean, HoloLight is, I mean, they're one company. They're really doing amazing things with. I mean, I have no, I have no ownership of them. That's just me just
No,
saying
but
that
it's
they.
impressive. It's very impressive.
it's a, but the fact that they're leveraging, everything in AWS or on the web, and then just streaming it to a headset allows you to have that fidelity and that robust, type of immersive experience. Either through the Apple Vision Pro or like an HTC or a Quest 3. Interesting times for sure.
for sure.
I don't know if do you guys have an Apple Vision Pro? I mean, I have one. I don't
I
use it
do.
as much.
Yeah,
I
I've
use it a
been out
lot,
of
actually.
vacation a couple of months. I feel badly about that, but I haven't used it in a bit.
I was
It's
using it pretty
Ran out of
heavily when I was
movies.
practicing.
yeah,
Oh, with the
from
basketball game tonight, it's a good opportunity, Gene. You can sit
Yeah,
courtside.
yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say for me, other than watching Apple TV for Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I used it
amazing
pretty heavily to
visuals.
but I
meet
think
with my team.
Apple TV left a bad I mean, even though it was a great device, and I've really been thinking about it a lot lately because the Gucci announcement, it was to me, it was high end, but I think it also was very misleading in
Mm.
that there were, there's 300 apps ready to go. They're iPad apps.
Yeah,
It Unless I wanna watch air traffic control, I'm not really seeing anything different on this, you know?
So
You know where
the
weapons traffic
these are
control?
not the apps you're looking for.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
NBA app is really impressive, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is.
And on the Vision Pro, it's really impressive. There's been some other ones that are sports related that are really impressive, but I think the
Mhm.
killer use case of the Vision Pro is none of that, right? It's actually the personas. Like the fact
yeah,
that you can Gaussian splat yourself and it looks like
Yeah.
you, and I can take a meeting and you could be in my room. We could pull up a deck and practice what we're gonna do on stage together, play chess, whatever it may be. But like the presence is crazy.
It is. It's an I absolutely agree. And to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying there, like there's parts of the Apple Vision Pro that I think are mind blowing. Like again, the presence, and I even think about the meta displays. Right, the glasses themselves they're impressive, but not as impressive as the neural wristband. I think
Yeah,
the
crazy.
neural wristband is going to be a massive. I think that's like the secret sauce that Meta's like, okay, like that's something that's probably more evolutionary than the display glasses themselves. I think
For sure.
having that and what Meta could possibly do with them, I think will open up a lot of sort of ways for training, for getting together with people, for connecting, in different ways. So yeah, I think that wristband is impressive.
I think John Turnus is going to turn it up, guys. I think him becoming the CEO of Apple is going to have
He's an
waves.
interesting guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got an interesting background. I'm not
You know
sure
him?
what Star Wars generation he is. Whether he looked like a prequels guy to me. If
you know what? He's at Apple, he's a Star Trek fan.
you,
No,
Oh, come
no.
on.
Save
mean-
that
Hey,
for the
you know
sticks.
what? Hey, you can't argue, they gave us the tricorder, man. They are Star Trek.
I'm good.
It's got to be in his 50s.
I mean, Star Trek was right. They gave it right. The holodeck, right? I mean,
Gosh, yes.
mean-
Everybody in VR dreamed about the holodeck.
No,
yeah. But that's what VR kind of gave us, right? Is the holodeck.
It was
and seeing where Carrie's team with the igloo rooms over the past couple weeks has been outstanding because they had their big 2.0 release. And they're actually trying to get to it. It's not the full hologram, but I agree with you because one of the things I always think about is VR right now. That what hurts it is a solitary experience, shared reflection. So it's like going to a movie with somebody. I don't go to a movie with somebody to talk to them during the movie. I know I'm weird like that. I go to talk to them either before or after the movie, especially after the movie, because I come from the generation where you go with your friends to a kung fu movie and you come out kicking everybody.
It's in the parking lot. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I am part of that generation where after the film, the best part going to the movie with your friends was acting it out afterwards.
Oh, I remember seeing Batman and all of us coming out. We're all Batman.
Because nobody wants to be Robin.
Right. Well, I mean, go all the way back to the original Star Wars. We all went home. We got on our bicycles. They were suddenly X-wings, and we were knocking each other off with sticks that we called lightsabers.
But
absolutely,
every one of us.
Yeah. And that's what I think is going back to the psychology of training, right? That's what I think VR was trying to get. They were like, I want to give people that excitement that of like, I'm in that world. Like I just saw Star Wars and this stick is now a lightsaber.
Yep. That common cultural moment. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the holodeck gets into it, is because the experiences that have the most impact are typically shared experience, shared reflection. It's like an escape room. Escape rooms excite people because everybody's engaged. Except for the one person sitting in the corner and said, "I figured it out in the first 5 minutes." There's always that one person. But other than that, it's about creating that experience where I'm not in a headset isolated. It's social.
Where I think VR got it really good, got it right, was the social side of it, right? The VR, like alt space VR, right? People were like hanging out. There used to be those events. They used to host those events in alt space. I think I did a couple. I did one on the Solo movie, like,
Wow.
but that's where I think they got it right, and I think on the training side, if there was a way, like they tried to get like these like doing all the on like virtual reality language lessons, right? And getting people in the room and you're just talking, and that's where I think it found some decent footing. And I always wish that enterprise solutions, Gene, looking at you and your work, your past work, why you guys did not lean heavier into using like a rec room or using like VR chat or something to be like, because it kind of like that's what Second Life was, right? That's where Elliot saw Second Life. He was like, I see the potential of like this world being corporate learning.
There were a couple in the enterprise. There were a couple setbacks that just really killed us. The first one was Teams. When Teams came in, because at first we were actually partnering with Spatial. So I was with Spatial back at when they were, didn't even have legs. It was just strung together. But it was such a neat idea. And so really tried using Spatial. But then Meta decided not to use Spatial and go to Horizon. So what we thought was going to be our system turned out, okay, well, now it's a little in between. And unfortunately, when you mention a social system set up by Facebook, people tend to not like it.
Yeah. There was a lot of rules.
Security, especially.
Absolutely. So it was an instant no. And then we were promised Mesh from Microsoft for years. Okay, you got Mesh coming.
Yeah.
The office was there. I remember setting up my office in it, and I was so excited because what a great way to do virtual one-on-ones and virtual coaching sessions. And then Mesh pulled, and in the midst of that, trying to get the headsets onto an enterprise network really is a red tape nightmare, because one of the things that I found, especially for the global companies, is they want one device for everybody.
Well, that and
And
they were under some really super tight cyber attacks at that point, so they had to harden and harden fast.
absolutely.
The
And
easiest
so,
way to harden is just to say no to everything.
yep,
Everything. What? The whole universe.
absolutely.
No. You start at no and you go down.
Yeah. And
You
and
can't go
then
any
you
further
have,
than no.
yeah. But the problem is you also had two headsets, the Pico and the Quest. 50% of people that you ask hate Meta, they cringe when you say the name. I'm looking at somebody right now every time I say it.
Who is that person?
It is right. I'm not going to say a name. I would never call Ron out like that. But
We're gone.
but then you have the other side that absolutely will not go with Pico because of its ties to ByteDance. So now you got these two different companies, that and you've got enterprises that only want one device.
Yeah.
And until you can get past that, it kind of gets dead on arrival. And honestly, I mean, I'm a victim of it. The times got tough, and it was always a running joke that I staked my entire career on XR at my former company. And when they pulled the plug, it was done.
Biggest roadblock I think we were talking about is compliancy, right? I think VR, the biggest struggle with VR will always be that not to call it HR. I mean, but my wife is thinking she can't hear me.
She's listening.
Well, it's like HR, and is it compliant to how the company is run? Are you doing everything? And then yes, security, cybersecurity is a big part of it, right? And then like this headset versus that headset. Right? Meta did not make it easy because they're like, oh, you want to use your headset enterprise training? Well, you got to spend so much a year per headset, and they're like, okay, like why are we on top of buying headsets? I now have to buy a seat, right? And the CTOs and the CFOs were like, just do training how we always do training. Like, why are we trying to bring in this layer that costs us all this extra money when we've been doing it like this for 50 years? So, but
Absolutely. I mean, it comes back
yeah,
down to the economics of it. The most economical thing is just put people in a room, train them, or create an e-learning and just throw it out there and hope it sticks.
I mean, it's like but again, and you could be weaponized with the data. You could be like, but the data says they learn faster, they retain the information, and they're gonna be like, that's great. How much is that gonna cost us? And
Bingo. Bingo.
How much is it going to
That was the-
save them is the better answer.
But
right.
they didn't listen to that argument. I pounded that argument for years and years and years in a value cost driven company.
Yeah.
No, it was Bobby's right. It was always, what's it going to cost us?
What's it
Yeah.
gonna cost us? Yeah.
I mean, I still remember Meta did a whole case study on me on saving money by travel by having a factory tour. And I mean, so I even had the hard data to validate it.
Yeah.
And
We even
what
grabbed some EBITDA, right? Actual EBIT.
yeah.
Nope, not good enough.
Yeah,
No,
you
because
could,
it's not selling
yeah.
product.
Like you could show them. You could be like, hey, this is where this is going to be so valuable. And they're gonna be like, I agree with you. 100% agree. That is so valuable. But
Yep.
how much is it gonna cost us again? Does it
Yep.
slow up the current training process? Oh, it does. What's the adoption for that? Oh, really? And again, they're now spinning, they're not spinning the tires, they're spinning the money. They're like,
Yeah.
and they're
Yep.
seeing money fly all around everywhere.
And then
Bingo.
once it
Bingo.
catches on, now they're behind the gun and just literally throwing money at the problem.
Which is
Yeah.
what they're doing with AI.
I think you guys as corporate people, you guys know, like the moment there's that door opening of like that negative like creak, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, like wait a minute, time out.
Oh, it's a very CYA. Like to be an to be a change leader, that's the thing, is that a lot of people only cover their butt in this.
Maybe listen. I mean, we've seen this. Maybe the right way is to start with revenue. is to help the guys and ladies selling and sales enablement and the teams that need, you know, really immersive sales support. Maybe the right way in for the tools and the hardware is
Make it a
drive
profit
revenue,
center.
and then you can
Yeah.
spread it across the organization.
Yeah.
But I
I
think,
always
you
thought
know,
so too.
15
Yeah.
years ago, it wasn't. We're there now.
Yeah.
Now we can send salespeople out with a kit and or send kits out to the prospective customers to do really immersive, cool things. And if that works, right? And if that works, you can drive actual revenue, which maybe is the right way to enter.
No, but see, so you're talking about KPIs, which to all of us, right? To the league, to those KPIs are the fuel of the gods, right? You know who doesn't give a you know who doesn't give a shit about KPIs is the fucking workers. They're like they're the ones who like
Can't even spell KPI.
Yeah.
like I show up like, you know, like it's my second job. I show up, you know, from like after work. I don't give a fuck about KPIs. It's like like they don't care. They don't care. And so and it's unfortunate because if they did care, then I think you'd see that, like, I think those upper leaders being like, maybe we should start to really listen. Like Mike's got a point, you know, like, hey, you know, like, you know, you know, like maybe that's like if the people on the ground, right, all of a sudden cared about their key performance
demand.
indicators.
Yeah, it'd be a different conversation for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of teaching you, like, hey, man, you keep your credit score up, keep your KPIs up, you're good.
And make money. I mean, Mike's argument is strong, right? Everybody's in business to make money. So
Make
if
money.
you know,
That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Listen, the closest we are to the revenue with any of our projects, if you get success, it inevitably that trajectory is much better than any other cost centers in a company. If you're close to the revenue, it's a good
Yep.
place to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every time.
But
I mean, the way it
again,
was always explained to me is I need to justify how this pushes product off of a shelf.
right. How are you going to
That's what it comes down to.
more bags of food, right? How are we going to move, how can we be better about being prepared for the next winter? We look at the data, and I do think there's visualized data, right? Whether it's through virtual reality or augmented reality or through graphs. I think that the data is super important, right?
Yeah, telling the story. It's a
yeah,
huge part of it, man.
but I do think there's a disconnect, right? Because there's two parts of the business, right? There's the decision makers, there's the people who are doing the training, but then again, there's the people who are no just disrespect to people working the floor of a supermarket or a Target but again, they're a different type of person, and how they view the company and how they view training is completely different. And that's where I think also that when it came to training and using virtual reality, we just assumed that those folks were going to be totally cool with it. Wrong. They're like, well, I'm not cool with that. And
That reminds me of a story. I'm sorry. I'm just going to take a quick rabbit trail. I was talking to a guy at another plant site down in Texas. He was a trainer. He was kind of like the Gene Feldman version for that site. He was all in on VR. He loved it, wanted it. Went to some of his guys to get them into it and train them, and they're like, "No, I'm not putting that shit on."
I still remember when I took it the first time I ever took it to a factory. I had my Oculus Rift. Okay, this is going old school.
yeah,
And I made sure to download the game Wrecked that allows you to rebuild the V8 engine at the time. And I'm like, I'm gonna show them what you can do, was possible. Within 10 minutes, I was carrying my gear out like I was fired
Lost
from
it.
Office Space. I'm
Really?
just like, where's my red stapler? I'm done. Thank you.
And VR was so weird because you also had stories that went the other way, right? You walked into a room and you thought it was going to be hostile, and then the next thing you know, they're like, "Wow, this is like Universal
Yeah.
Soldier. I love this."
This
Like,
is way
okay,
different.
I've got no rhyme or reason here. Some people hate me, some people love me. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on who's on the side, man. It's very case by case.
Exactly.
What was it? Remember? And I remember one of the early VR experiences that I loved was the experience. It was, we'll go to the Star Wars, where the Millennium Falcon flies above you and lands down. You have to help. You ever play that one? I think it was on the Rift.
Yeah, it was just one of the experiences.
There's
There
one
was no
experience.
interaction.
It wasn't
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah,
games.
you had to like press a couple
Huh.
buttons, right? And at the end you had like the stormtrooper show up and you had a lightsaber and you kind of deflected. But it was this whole experience where the Millennium Falcon flew above you and then landed, and Han Solo would be like, "Hey kid, like you gotta hit these couple buttons because the landing gear is stuck." And you did it as a small task, but you did it. And I remember I played that for a friend of mine and she was like, "This is fucking game changing." But then I was like, "Oh, now check this out." And it was like a VR training for like building something. She's like, "Well, this is dumb."
Yeah. And yeah, because when people get into it, the last thing they want to do is work. They want they
That's right.
want
Because
they want
work
to
is
play
work.
with it.
Yeah.
Work is work.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Gaming's amazing in VR. It's
Yeah.
been
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
It's still amazing. Content consumption's been amazing. It still is. Like work is very different. You're right. Like you're trying to retrain people's behaviors, right? And retrain behaviors is hard.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, look at with smartphones. I mean, smartphones, emerged from the BlackBerry, was supposed to give us more work, but now it's one of the biggest distractions at work we could have ever hoped for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between TikTok videos, Wordle, and
Spatial's going to be the same thing. So, it's like nobody's paying you to have it, right? Like when it's a form factor
Mike
changes,
wearing
it's
his
going to
ribbons.
change.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's going to have the glasses, and
Yep.
they're going to be in all different form factors. These are the Evan realities, which don't,
So good.
they don't have cameras, right? And they don't, they're actually a really nice setup. They do some things really well. They have the translation. They have a little bit of,
Teleprompter.
little bit of a display. They're really good.
The
Yeah,
teleprompter is
well,
amazing.
everyone's going to have this stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean,
and what I like is they're not as evasive as because I've seen your displays on you, and your displays looks like you just got out of the military.
Yeah, they're not sleek. They're not sleek at all,
Yeah.
man.
Is that a compliment? I can't tell. I
They call those birth control glasses, don't you, Gene?
I've heard that.
BCGs, yeah.
My
So that is the actual term.
You just wait for those gentle monster ones and those Gucci ones by Android. They're gonna be slick, right?
Well, I do think VR, and we've been seeing a lot of it lately, right? VR is dead. People be like, VR is dead. And that's been a conversation, but I'm on the side that it's not dead. And I think we're actually in this sort of new horizon, right? The Force Awakens, right? This idea that I do think there's a sort of like where technology is going, where Google is going, and where again Meta, Gucci Ray-Ban glasses, and I think with wearables, I think with that virtual reality is if anything is like this, has now started to emerge slightly different, and it's now finding some decent footing in places where it makes sense. And I do think like it's going to have this sort of like, I don't want to say crawl back moment, because that's like maybe, but just it's going to have this like new moment. It's not going to be like Boba Fett coming out of the pit and having the Book of Boba Fett moment.
No.
But it's going to have this new moment where it's going to be this. I think it's going to find better footing in industries.
I kind of look at we're in the rebuilding.
Moment. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the rebuilding years. It's like watching a sports team or a franchise.
Like my New York Giants, we're rebuilding years.
Yeah, it's like the heart. It's like the Harley Davidson AMF years.
We're up right now, guys. We're winning. Sidebar: I've been watching the score, but no, it's like a PC. It's a PC revolution, right? You got to think about it. Like you can't take everybody's got a bastardized picture because of a cell phone. Somebody paid you to have one of those supercomputers in your pocket.
Yeah.
Nobody paid you to have a computer. You look at the inflection curve and the adoption of a computer. It took a long time, 30 plus years still. It was like everywhere, right? This is similar, right? And like, there's a lot of nonsense out there, Vision Pro is dead. They're killing. Come on, man. They sold 650,000 AVPs in the last year.
Yeah.
That's 2.5 billion on the low end. That's not real big numbers for Apple, but that's big numbers by anybody else. Right.
Especially they didn't need to manufacture one in the entire year.
They were just selling the stuff in the warehouses.
Yeah, it's but it's still crazy. You think about it, right? Like it's chipping away slowly.
It is. And I remember like I can't remember what Zuckerberg. I think it was maybe OC6, but I remember he was on stage and he said virtual reality technology is the fastest growing technology at the time. At the time, and it was like the adoption of VR technology and how it evolved was the fastest growing, which is why he jumped all over it. But I also think that maybe was what held it back because it grew so fast that couldn't have time enough to figure out how to adopt it. But here we are now, 2026. We've had since 2015, we've had a long time of like figuring out that now new technology can come out. And just look at how AI, right? The adoption of AI tools shot right up, but
Oh my
people were
gosh.
prepared for it because they had
Yeah.
a path. And I think VR coming back with AI, with these new, with these new tools, I think now has this roadmap, and now I think has that potential of like, okay, we have a foundation. Here's where it can go, and I think with hardware, with VR, AI solutions, it's no longer sort of like a what is VR question, right? Now military knows what it is, everyone knows what it is, and we're beyond that, and now it's like, okay, how does that look? What does that look like in my learning and development? What does that look like in my onboarding? What does that look like in my recruiting process? What does that look like on my offboarding process? What does it look like on my transferring knowledge to younger employees? And we have a foundation for it. And I think so. I think this idea is like now that digital solutions, VR, AR, XR, whatever you want to call it, can slowly move into the right places on industries and get that adoption. So now then, all of us, our companies, we're getting that business. We're able to work with, get those training in, get that development in, and that's where I think, and younger kids, right? They're tech savvy, but they're the
That's right.
future of employers. They're the future employees. So
Yeah.
And
Wow.
they're
That
real
sounds like
and
a great end note on a great podcast, Gene. Aren't we at time?
we are at time.
Yeah.
Which that is a great point. Usually we ask all of our guests to end with kind of their final protocol. And honestly, we're capturing that. That was
That
great
was a pretty
because
good protocol.
great one because I remember him giving me a relatively same speech years ago. And absolutely, and and to me, this is very reminiscent of the conversation we had with Bob Stone, where he outdates us, and it's just the same kind of issues that we keep kind of running in circles around, and keep trying to address as technology. So, but with that, we are at time. First off, thank you to all of our panel and our protocol members, Lucky, Mike, Ron, and Damon. Really appreciate you guys joining today. And Bobby, seriously, thank you so much. Just to let you know, if you ever want to join again, be a fly on the wall, be a part of the panel.
man, anytime. Thank you guys for letting me be on your show. This is great.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. There's a seat
We're
always
a
here
show
for you, my
now.
friend.
I, I I could be a great fly on the wall, but I really appreciate this having it like being part of the show. I love talking about this. I mean, I apologize if I talked too much, but it's something that
Okay.
I've been working in this industry for a long time, and I'm not ready to let it go. So,
I think we're all in CPR mode at the
Yeah.
moment.
there you go.
So, but
Clear.
absolutely. You know what? Coming on
That's a good one.
season 3 of The Pit, Saving XR,
Oh, jeez.
Great show.
isn't it? It's
Well,
a
at least you
fantastic
didn't-
show.
At
And
least
what
you
I
didn't
love
go
too
to
is-
like Revenge of the VR or something.
There you go.
XR
Absolutely.
returns.
Well, happy
New
May
Hope.
4th, everyone.
There you go.
On that note, thank you guys for joining. If you like, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. We'll talk to everybody soon.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone. Appreciate you.
Yay.
Bye, guys.
Bobby.
And there's no such thing.